Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here. Don't forget to subscribe. Today, we are talking about bots because detecting them, quite frankly, really isn't working anymore. And I think the ramifications of this long term are going to be absolutely enormous. This is one of those cat and mouse games that, quite frankly, isn't going away. And I don't necessarily know if we're going to win anytime soon. Now, there was a really good write-up in the conversation by Irfan Mahmoud and Kamran Maroof on this. And quite frankly, I think this is important. And just as an opening shot, I quote them, not paraphrase, directly. The tools designed to prove we're human are now obstructing us more than the machines they're supposed to be keeping at bay. And I think that is, quite frankly, one of the big issues that we have, because pretty much the world is using CAPTCHA. Now, if you're going to a website, you've probably seen CAPTCHA, and let's talk about that because they've got a pretty good history here regarding this. Now, basically, this stands for Completely Automated Public Turing Test to Tell Computers and Humans Apart. Now, this was essentially invented and started in the early 2000s at a team out of Carnegie Mellon, and it was a pretty basic concept: get the internet users to prove their humanity via tasks that they could easily complete, but machines at the time would find difficult. And I mean at the time, right? And so here's the thing. Back in the early 2000s, this was already a problem with bots. Websites were slammed with them doing things like setting up fake accounts to buy concert tickets, pushing automated comments to market scams, et cetera, et cetera. And so by virtue of that, companies needed a way to stop, obviously, this activity without losing their legitimate users. And by virtue of that, CAPTCHA was born. And CAPTCHA was pretty basic but effective early on. So first rounds, if you remember, you'd see wavy, distorted letters. You type them into a box. And at the time, these bots really couldn't read, for lack of a better term, the text the way we can with our eyes, good or bad. And so by virtue of that, they really couldn't get through that system. Then we went through several iterations in the years ahead. So reCAPTCHA was created in 2007 to add a second element in which you also had to key in a distorted word from an old book, if you remember that one. Then in 2014, they were acquired by Google, and then we came out with reCAPTCHA v2. Now, that one asked users to tick the I am not a robot box and often choose from a selection of pictures containing cats or bicycle parts or whatever was on the screen. I remember stoplights was one I've seen quite a bit. Now, that is the most popular today. Google, for the record, does get paid by companies who use that service on their website. But here's the kicker to the whole thing. Today's advanced AI systems, large language models, etc., can now solve the challenges that the CAPTCHAs rely on. They can read the distorted text, so those wavy and squished letters are pretty much easy for them to walk right through. And thanks to natural language processing and machine learning, AI can now decode even the most scrambled of these kinds of words. Now, on top of this, AI tools such as Google Vision or OpenAI's Clip can recognize hundreds of objects faster and more accurately than we can. So if we're squinting to say, is there a stoplight or a bicycle or whatever in this grainy little picture in this CAPTCHA, they see it instantly compared to us. So if a CAPTCHA asks an AI to click on all the buses in a picture selection, for example, they can solve it in a fraction of a second, where it might take us 10 seconds, 15 seconds, in my case, half a minute maybe, so there it is. I have these glasses for a reason, right? And so here's why this is an issue, because let's give this example. The moment, for example, tickets to an event, sporting event, concert, whatever, Taylor Swift, who knows, the bots overwhelm the system, they bypass the CAPTCHAs, and then they purchase these tickets in bulk, and then therefore they resell them at inflated prices, meaning you and I, the genuine humans and users, often miss out on these because we can't operate as quickly. So here's another option. Bots attack social media platforms, e-commerce websites, online forums. I've talked about this left and right, about how fake accounts can spread disinformation, post spam, grab limited items during sales, all of this. And in many cases, the CAPTCHA just really can't stop the abuse. And so here's the thing. As we evolve all of this to essentially confirm that we are indeed human, is starting to turn into privacy violations. So some newer systems like Google's reCAPTCHA v3, which they introduced back in 2018, no longer asks you to solve puzzles. Instead, the reCAPTCHA system v3 kind of watches how you interact with the website. Do you move your cursor naturally? Do you type like a person? We just have subtle little behaviors that bots really can't mimic, and so that is essentially where we're going. But reCAPTCHA v3 naturally raises privacy issues because these, for the record, how we move, how we interact, how we type, our typing DNA, if you will, which is a company that Google purchased a while back, these are unique identifiers to who we are. You don't type the same way I do, and these little subtle differences identify you from me. Right? In the same way that we have identifiers or fingerprints on our phones, our battery life versus software version versus a whole combination of things, without knowing who I am, can identify that phone as me. So on top of all of this, the web company that's actually using the reCAPTCHA v3 needs to access, or I should say rather assess user scores to determine who is a bot, and the bots are beating the systems anyway. So there are alternatives basically that use similar logic. You might have seen a slider puzzle that asks you to move the jigsaw piece around to get it into the right place. I've done that like multiple times. Those are now being overcome as well. Some websites are now turning to biometrics to verify humans, such as fingerprint scans or voice recognition. Face ID is also obviously a possibility as well. Those are privacy issues in and of themselves. Biometrics are harder to fake, basically for the bots to fake, but they come with their own problems. Obviously the privacy concerns, not to mention it is expensive technology compared to doing like a CAPTCHA system, and by virtue of that, there may be limited access for some users. So maybe a user doesn't have a smartphone, or they can't speak because of a disability, and now they're asked to basically put a smartphone to their face for identification, or let's say they're deaf or mute, and now they can't do that. And the other side of it is the future tech of this, because we are leveraging more and more AI, and by virtue of that, we're going to soon be having AI agents that act on our behalf. And this is going to add another layer of complexity to this. It basically means that we increasingly want our bots, the bots we own, to visit websites and do things on our behalf. Hey, go to Ticketmaster for me, NickBot, and purchase the ticket that I want. So now Ticketmaster or any one of these companies has to start distinguishing between a good bot and a bad bot. And if I'm getting my bot from, I don't know, Microsoft or whatever, who's to say the threat actors aren't either? Right? On top of it, this is something that needs a lot of more consideration. Digital authentication certificates are proposed as one possible solution. There are many different ways that we can do this. If you are familiar with this, I work with Human ID. This is a way that you can identify a human while keeping them anonymous online. It's good for journalists. It's good for dissidents. There's a lot of different options here. But the point is that this continual cat and mouse game is going to continue to be there. And by virtue of that, we have seen just website after website overrun with this, whether we can't buy tickets or whether we're getting just the absolute junk of information, and a whole bunch of people are believing it because it aligns with their confirmation bias. This is a problem that we're not going to solve anytime soon, and quite frankly, it's one that is going to continue to be an issue, because as we use the internet, as we become addicted to the internet, thank you Facebook, Instagram, and others, this isn't going away. And this problem is only going to get worse. And as people believe and trust or being fed the narrative that they don't need, let's say, vetting of information like an editorial process, it's going to become 1,000 times worse. And so this is something I think that's a huge issue. And I'll leave it at that. But either way, we're all in this boat together, and hopefully we can discern fact from fiction, because Lord knows the bots are acting like us, and it's a little too scary. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP, except if you're a bot. I don't want you to follow me if you're a bot. Same with YouTube as well. I don't need fake accounts following me. And also, I'm on Blue Sky and Mastodon as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please, just please, attempt to stay private. Thanks, everybody.